Now we start with something very much like 1 and 2. For want of a better name we shall call him Doohinkus. All we need do is add some sort of box for a pelvis, some pads for hands and feet, some balls at the joints, and a straight line across for shoulders. We thus give him the following characteristics: head is a ball, chest is a ball, pelvis is a box slanted out at back and in at the sides. The spine does not go through the chest ball but around the back of it. The legs are not straight but curve into the knees and out toward the foot. Forearm is slightly curved. Chest ball is divided by a line through the middle and flaring lines at the bottom, like a Y upside down. The reason for the curve on the bones is that they thus become springy and shock absorbing. Without those curves we would be nervous wrecks before we were in short pants or panties as the case may be. Every limb is movable in practically all directions. The chest ball is fixed to the spine but the spine bends in all directions. It can also twist or turn, so that there is a wide range of movements possible between spine and pelvis. The human body is just about the nicest bit of mechanics we have in the world. We can walk, run, jump, climb, stand erect, sit, all without any oiling or burnt out spark plugs. Our motor starts and stops once. If we take care of the engine it will outlast any metal one. Let's go. 53. Here we go. The proportions of your little figures may be varied in any sort of way. Below we show a variety of comic exaggerations. 54. We start on the figure. We shall start at once to put them into action. There will always be movement of the parts. Draw this page carefully and become thoroughly familiar with the movement of each part. 55. Doohinkus moves about. Study the framework. 56. Purposely off balance. 57. Do some of these. 58. Try these, then invent some of your. 59. Building on the framework. 60. Building on the framework. 61. A way to set up the action: take any jointed doll if possible, one jointed at the waist. This fellow is a plain wooden out-store mannequin. In order to make him exist for you as something more than wooden chunks, I dolled him up, with paint, putty, and a bit of hair from the bathroom rug. Then I got busy with my candid camera. He is a queer-looking little guy, a sort of cross between Groucho Marx and a cigar store Indian, but he is made of parts, and it is the appearance of these parts in action that we are interested in. In this way Doohinkus Mannequin is better than a live model. The black lines on him help you his bulk, just as they do on the ball. Take some of these poses. Start by drawing the framework in the approximate action. It is not important that you maintain the same proportions, and you can substitute any head. Change him to suit yourself, but watch the positions of the parts carefully. Build on each part as you it. Note where the lines of joints curve up or down, how the part is tipped toward or away from you. You can exaggerate the action of the hips and shoulders, as those actions were quite limited in the mannequin. You can also, if you wish, render the light and shadow on the parts. Tracing these, or copying without building, will do you no good. But if you will build a dozen or so, you will be able to set up figures of your own, in almost any action. The correct assembling of the parts of the figure is much more important than actual knowledge of the bones and muscles. You cannot put clothes on your figures properly without knowing the action of under the clothes, and the flexing and pulling of the material over them from one part to another. Pages 66 and 67 will show how to go about it. 62. Doohinkus Mannequin shows you the parts in action. 63. Build figures from these. Start with the framework. 64. After drawing these, try some of your. 65. How you use the Doohinkus poses. Here is the way to go about the preceding poses. I have chosen figure number 8 at random. First, it is a good idea to know what the normal figure is like. You needn't draw this unless you are interested. The bottom figures illustrate how the exaggerated is based on the normal. 66. Just play with the figures. The main idea is to enjoy yourself. Someday you may just put clothes right over the framework. But it is better always to sketch in the figure. Do not follow the photos literally. Do a lot of inventing. I wish I had more space here, but perhaps these will give you a working basis. 67. The suit. 68. The dress. 69. How to draw a hat correctly. 70. Freak hats. 71. The hand. 72. Feet. 73. Now we build the figure and put on some clothes. 74. Experiment on Felix the Ice. 75. Trick stuff. 76. Trick. 77. Now have some fun. 78. Try to work out the construction yourself. 79. Experiment with these. 80. I'm putting you on your own. 81. These ought to be interesting. 82. Build them up, don't just copy. 83. Now let's mix up the races. 84. You can draw them all by our methods. 85. Also these. 86. Among us mortals. 87. Down on the farm. 88. When you and I were young. Maggie. 89. Annabelle. 90. Just naturally athletic. 91. Vamps. 92. And more vamps. 93. Foreshortening, unless one has a sound method of building, foreshortening is very difficult. In the figure at the right, the parts resemble the Doohinkus photos. If you think of the figure as sections fitted together, foreshortening takes, fully as we built the head in part 1. Think of solids below. We obtain foreshortening by projecting a profile into a front view, or the reverse, as we did with the head. Establish the desired tilt and position of the parts, then by parallel lines build the other position of the figure so that all important points coincide. When the figure is close, increase the parts that are closest and diminish the parts that are away from you. I did not do this, fearing it might confuse you. I personally prefer the method at the top, assigning the eye, but often a difficult problem can be worked out easily this way, and it is well to know how. 94. Thus endeth part 2. Here's Gashouse Nelly back with us, and what a wallop. She's here to show you there's no fooling about those little dehincuses. You can get more real stuff into your figures in 2 minutes this way than in 2 days of trying to horse around with the finished drawing that has not been planned out. If Nelly isn't really slamming this guy, I'm a Chinaman. I can almost hear it. 95. Now that I've got all of you, what to do? 96. Part 3. A world for your figures to live in. 97. Perspective. 98. How to establish figures on the ground. 99. Perspective in the figure. 100. Come on, false. 101. Furniture. 102. How to project furniture onto the ground plane. Here is an excellent method for building furniture and figures on a ground plane. It is simpler. 103. Building an interior from a ground plan I. 104. Building an interior from a ground plan 2. 105. Building an interior from a ground plan 3. 106. Building an interior from a ground plan IV. Bedtime. And here is the finished drawing. It's fun to try inking in some of your pencil drawings. Get a bottle of waterproof black drawing ink. You can get a box of school watercolors, also, and get still more fun out of it. Knowing just what is the correct perspective helps so much to give that solid, finished, and professional look. This procedure opens up a whole world for the little figures you have learned to draw. It is worthwhile to see what you can do with this method. It offers a possibility of setting some work, besides the thrill of doing it. Now we shall take up a new subject. 107. Light and shadow. The principle, rays of light travel in straight lines. From any spot, the middle ray, the perpendicular to source, would meet the earth and pass through its center. At the point directly under the source we establish the point DL, meaning direction of light. S will mean source at the top of the perpendicular, from the farthest limit of the shadow to DL, then up to the source and back to the shadow. Forms a triangle. The third corner of the triangle will be called at, meaning angle of light. DL may be the vanishing point of the shadow or the base from which it proceeds outward. 108. A simplified method for ground shadows. 109. Light and shadow. 110. Light and shadow. 111. Light and shadow. 112. The last hill I have chosen a problem here that would be very difficult without some understanding of the fundamentals given in part 3. By the use of perspective, together with the effect of light and shadow, we create the illusion of space, form, and a quality of existence. This drawing may have the feel of having been sketched from life, because of the fundamental principles applied to it. However, it was done from the imagination, without any copy, simply to show you the possibilities. It is a great storehouse of material. By all means, draw from that great source. Do not just copy. Build with what you observe for yourself to be true. Try to get the individual quality of each thing you draw. It is that quality that makes the artist interesting. 113. Time's up, folks, we gotta go. Bye. 114. The Author's Corner. I guess all you folks will forgive me for reserving a tiny corner of the book as my own. Everything must eventually come to an end, and so with this book, my first effort of this kind. It has been a concentrated effort. At times I have seen the daylight fade and come back again without sleep. I'll never tell anybody the actual time it took me to make these, it seems, thousands of drawings. I'm sure he would not believe me. I'm dreadfully tired but immensely happy. It has been intensely interesting, for I have retraced the ground of years ago. It has carried me back to the first struggle for knowledge that might earn me a living. It has reminded me of the early drawings which so often came back, how simple it all might have been, had I in the beginning been able to assemble these working principles, put them in order, and work with them as I do now. But they were bits of knowledge plucked out of the air like bits of fluff from a seed pod. Only a few within your grasp, just a few to take root and flourish. Strangely, the simplest facts always are the latest in being understood. And when they are, their utter simplicity is the best reason for their acceptance, even at the cost of having to sweep out the pet theories and ideas accumulated over half a lifetime. At best, how do I know that I'm any more right now than in my student days? The answer is that of the convalescent who has suffered and got well again. Lack of knowledge can be greater torture than the effort of acquiring it. I know only that I am happier in my work than I was then. It has gained publication in places that once seemed hopeless for me. I can approach the work with peace of mind and confidence boon of experience. This book is an effort to transplant that peace of mind to some few thousand others who otherwise must fall victims to the self-same devices which contrive to make before they can make even a meager start.